Beatrice Langford was dying, and she knew it. The doctors had given her months to live, but that didn't scare her anymore. What scared her was dying without anyone holding her hand. What broke her heart was knowing she had millions of dollars, but not a single person who loved her for who she really was. On the morning of her birthday, she woke up alone in her giant mansion, wondering if anyone in the world would even remember. Her children had forgotten her birthday. Her sister never called anymore. But then something unexpected happened. A young homeless boy knocked on her door, and everything changed. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. New York, United Kingdom, maybe South Africa, or Jamaica. We want to know. The sun rose over the city, painting the sky orange and pink. Beatrice Langford's mansion stood tall on Maple Street, surrounded by iron gates and beautiful gardens. From the outside, it looked like a palace. Inside, it felt like a prison. Beatrice sat in her bedroom, looking at herself in the mirror. Her hands shook as she tried to button her blue dress. The sickness made everything harder now. She was thin, too thin. Her silver hair, once thick and beautiful, now hung loose around her pale face. The doctors had told her the truth months ago. Months to live, maybe less. But Beatrice wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of dying alone. She walked slowly down the grand staircase, holding tight to the railing. Each step hurt. Her legs felt weak. Her chest felt tight. But she kept going. Today was her birthday. Surely someone would remember. Surely someone would come. The mansion was huge. 15 rooms, a swimming pool in the back, a garage with 3 expensive cars, paintings on the walls worth thousands of dollars, chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds. Everything perfect. Everything expensive. Everything empty. Beatrice had worked her whole life to build her business. She started with nothing and became one of the richest women in the city. She sold luxury furniture to rich people all over the country. She made smart deals. She never gave up, and she became a millionaire before she turned 40. She did it all for her family, for her 2 children, Serena and Donovan. She wanted to give them the best life possible, the best schools, the best clothes, the best future. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong. Serena, her daughter, used to call every day when she was younger. "Mommy, I love you," she would say. "You're the best mom in the world." But now, Serena only called when she needed money, for a new car, for a vacation, for designer bags and shoes. She lived across town but visited maybe once a month. And when she did visit, she spent the whole time on her phone, barely looking at her mother. Donovan, her son, was even worse. He took money from Beatrice's business account without asking. He threw parties with his friends and spent thousands of dollars in one night. When Beatrice tried to talk to him about it, he would get angry. "It's my inheritance anyway," he would say coldly. "Why do I have to wait until you're dead to enjoy it?" Those words had cut Beatrice deeper than any knife. Then there was Marjorie, Beatrice's younger sister. They grew up poor together, sharing one small room, one old blanket, dreaming of better days. When Beatrice became successful, she helped Marjorie. She paid for Marjorie's house. She gave her money every month. She thought sisters were supposed to stick together forever. But Marjorie became jealous. She wanted more. She wanted what Beatrice had. And slowly, she stopped being a sister and became a stranger who only smiled when she wanted something. Beatrice reached the bottom of the stairs and walked into the dining room. Mrs. Whitaker, her cook, had prepared a small birthday cake earlier that morning. It sat on the long table looking lonely. Candles ready to be lit, but no one to light them. Beatrice picked up her phone and checked her messages. Nothing from Serena, nothing from Donovan, nothing from Marjorie. She had sent them all reminders yesterday. Tomorrow is my birthday. I would love to see you. Please come celebrate with me. No one replied. Beatrice felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to cry. She had cried enough in the past few months. Cried when the doctor gave her the bad news. Cried when her children forgot her last birthday. Cried when she realized that all her money couldn't buy the one thing she desperately wanted: love. She walked to the big window in the living room and looked outside. The street was busy. People walking to work, children riding bicycles, a mother holding her baby. Everyone looked happy. Everyone had someone. Beatrice pressed her hand against the cool glass and whispered to herself, "I have millions of dollars. I have everything. So why do I feel like I have nothing?" The morning turned into afternoon. The house stayed quiet. Beatrice sat in her favorite chair, the one by the window, and watched the world go by. She felt the sickness pulling at her, making her tired, but she didn't want to sleep. If she slept, she might miss someone coming. She might miss a call. She might miss the chance to not be alone. She heard footsteps outside. Her heart jumped. She sat up straight. Was it Serena? Was it Donovan? Were they finally here? But the footsteps passed by. Just the delivery man dropping off a package next door. Beatrice's heart sank again. The sun was burning hot outside. Beatrice felt weak. She wanted to eat something, but she had no appetite. She wanted to call someone, but who would answer? She wanted to cry, but she had no tears left. Then, through the window, she saw him. A small boy walking slowly down the street. His clothes were torn and dirty. His feet were bare, covered in dust and cuts. His face was thin, too thin, like he hadn't eaten in days. He couldn't have been more than a child. The boy stopped in front of Beatrice's gate. He looked up at the big mansion, his eyes wide with wonder and fear. He stood there for a long time as if trying to gather courage. Then slowly, he pushed open the gate and started walking up the long driveway toward the house. Beatrice watched him, her heart beating faster. Something about this boy touched her soul. Maybe it was the way he walked so carefully, so humbly. Maybe it was the sadness in his young eyes. Or maybe it was because at that moment, Beatrice saw herself in him, alone, hungry, desperate for kindness. The doorbell rang. Beatrice stood up, her legs shaking. She walked to the door and opened it. There he was, the poor street boy looking up at her with eyes that held both hope and shame. His lips were cracked. His hands were dirty. His stomach was probably empty. "Please, ma'am," he said in a voice so soft she almost didn't hear it. "I'm very, very hungry. Could you please give me some food? Just a little bit, anything. Even leftovers would be okay." Beatrice looked at this boy, this stranger who had the courage to ask for help, and something inside her broke open. Not with sadness this time, but with purpose. For the first time all day, she smiled, a real smile. "What's your name, child?" she asked gently. "Tobias, ma'am," the boy replied, looking down at his dirty feet. Beatrice's smile grew bigger. "Well, Tobias, today is my birthday. And you know what? You're the first person to show up, so you won't eat scraps from my kitchen. You'll sit at my table like a guest of honor. Come inside." Tobias looked up at her, shocked. "Really, ma'am? You mean it?" "I mean it," Beatrice said, opening the door wide. "Come in, Tobias. Let's celebrate together." And that's how it began. A millionaire woman dying alone. A street boy starving for food. Two people who had nothing in common except loneliness. Neither of them knew it yet, but this meeting would change everything. This birthday would become the most important day of both their lives. Tobias stood frozen at the doorway, his bare feet on the edge of the expensive marble floor. He had never seen anything like this in his entire life. The floor was so shiny he could see his dirty reflection staring back at him. A huge chandelier hung from the ceiling, sparkling like 1,000 stars. The furniture looked softer than any bed he'd ever slept on. "Come on in. Don't be shy," Beatrice said warmly, noticing how scared he looked. "But ma'am," Tobias whispered, looking down at his filthy feet, "I'm too dirty. I'll mess up your beautiful house." Beatrice's heart melted even more. This boy who had nothing was worried about ruining her things. Her own children, who had everything, never cared about anything she owned. They broke things, stained things, and never even said sorry. "Tobias, listen to me," Beatrice said, bending down a little to look him in the eyes. "You are a guest in my home. Guests are always welcome, no matter what they look like. Now come inside before I change my mind about that chocolate cake in the kitchen." Chocolate cake? Tobias's eyes went wide. He couldn't remember the last time he had cake, maybe when he was young before his parents died. That felt like a lifetime ago. Slowly, carefully, Tobias stepped inside. He tried to walk on his tiptoes so his dirty feet wouldn't touch too much of the floor. Beatrice watched him and smiled sadly. When was the last time someone showed such respect in her home? "Wait here," Beatrice said, and she disappeared down a hallway. Tobias stood in the entrance, looking around in amazement. There were paintings on the walls that looked like they belonged in museums. A grand staircase curved up to the second floor, like something from a fairy tale. Through a doorway, he could see a dining room, with a table so long it could seat 20 people. Beatrice returned carrying a bowl of warm water, a towel, and some soap. "Before we eat, let's get you cleaned up a bit," she said kindly. "Sit down on that chair there." Tobias sat down nervously on the edge of a fancy chair, trying not to touch too much of it. Beatrice knelt down in front of him, something that shocked Tobias so much he almost jumped up. "Ma'am, no, no, you shouldn't kneel for me," Tobias said, his voice full of panic. "I'm nobody." "Everybody is somebody, Tobias," Beatrice said softly. She began washing his feet gently with the warm water. "In this house on my birthday, you are my honored guest." Tears filled Tobias's eyes. Nobody had touched him with kindness like this in years. Most people looked at him with disgust. They shooed him away like he was a rat. They called him names, beggar, trash. But this rich woman in her beautiful mansion was washing his feet like he was a prince. "Why are you being so nice to me?" Tobias asked, his voice cracking. Beatrice looked up at him, and Tobias saw tears in her eyes too. "Because today I learned something, Tobias. I learned that kindness doesn't come from family or money. It comes from the heart. And you, my dear boy, had the courage to ask for help. That takes a brave heart." She finished cleaning his feet and handed him the towel. "Now, let's go to the kitchen. Mrs. Whitaker made some wonderful food this morning, and there's plenty for both of us." Tobias followed Beatrice through the mansion, his mouth hanging open at everything he saw. They entered a kitchen that was bigger than any room Tobias had ever lived in. The counters were made of shiny stone. The refrigerator was huge and silver, and on the table sat the most beautiful birthday cake Tobias had ever seen. It was covered in white frosting with pink flowers made of sugar. Candles stood ready to be lit. "Sit down," Beatrice said, pointing to a chair at the kitchen table. "Do you like chicken?" "I like anything, ma'am," Tobias said honestly. "I haven't eaten in days." Beatrice's heart broke. Days? This child hadn't eaten in days. She opened the refrigerator and pulled out containers of food. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh bread. She heated everything up and made Tobias a plate so full the food was almost falling off. Tobias stared at the plate like it was made of gold. His hands shook as he picked up the fork. Then he stopped and looked at Beatrice. "Aren't you going to eat too, ma'am?" Beatrice smiled. She hadn't had an appetite all day, but something about Tobias's question made her feel hungry. "Yes, I'll make myself a plate too." They sat together at the kitchen table, the rich millionaire woman and the poor street boy, and they ate. Tobias tried to eat slowly to have good manners, but he was so hungry. Beatrice watched him and kept putting more food on his plate. "Tell me about yourself, Tobias," Beatrice said gently. "Where are your parents?" Tobias stopped chewing. His eyes became sad. "They died, ma'am. Years ago, there was a big fire in our apartment building. My mom and dad, they didn't make it out." "Oh, Tobias," Beatrice whispered. "I'm so sorry." "After that, I lived with my uncle for a while," Tobias continued, his voice quiet. "But he didn't want me. He said I was too expensive to feed, so he told me to leave. I've been living on the streets ever since. I sleep in doorways. Sometimes the church lets me sleep on their steps. I look for food in trash cans. Sometimes people give me money or food. Most times they don't." Beatrice felt tears running down her cheeks. This child had suffered so much, and yet there was still light in his eyes, still hope. "Do you go to school?" Beatrice asked. Tobias shook his head. "No, ma'am. I used to love school. I was good at reading and math. But after my parents died, I had to stop." "You can't go to school when you don't have a home, or clean clothes or food." "What do you dream about, Tobias?" Beatrice asked. "If you could have anything in the world, what would it be?" Tobias thought for a moment, chewing slowly on a piece of chicken. "I dream about having a family again. Not a rich family, just people who love me. I dream about going back to school. I dream about having a bed to sleep in and food to eat every day. I dream about becoming someone important one day so I can help other kids like me who have nobody." Beatrice wiped her tears. Here was a child who had every reason to be angry, bitter, and hateful. But instead, he dreamed of helping others. He dreamed of love and education and making the world better. "Those are beautiful dreams, Tobias," Beatrice said. "And I believe dreams can come true." "Do you really think so, ma'am?" Tobias asked, his eyes full of hope. "I know so," Beatrice said firmly. They finished eating, and Beatrice brought out the birthday cake. "Tobias, would you like to help me celebrate?" "Me? But it's your birthday, ma'am, and you're my guest," Beatrice said, placing the cake between them. "Let's light these candles together." Beatrice lit all the candles, and they flickered in the kitchen like tiny stars. Tobias stared at them in wonder. "Now we're supposed to sing happy birthday," Beatrice said. "But I'll feel silly singing to myself. Will you sing with me?" Tobias nodded eagerly. And there, in that big kitchen, a poor street boy and a dying millionaire sang happy birthday together. Tobias's voice was young and clear. Beatrice's voice was soft and tired. But together, they made the most beautiful sound Beatrice had heard in years. "Make a wish, ma'am," Tobias said excitedly. "You have to make a wish before you blow out the candles." Beatrice closed her eyes. She had so many wishes. She wished she wasn't sick. She wished her children loved her. She wished she wasn't so lonely. But as she stood there with Tobias beside her, she made a different wish. She wished that this boy, this pure-hearted, brave, kind boy, would have a chance at a better life. She opened her eyes and blew out the candles. Tobias clapped and cheered like it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. They ate cake together, laughing as frosting got on their faces. Tobias told Beatrice stories about the funny things he'd seen on the streets. Beatrice told Tobias stories about when she was young and poor, just like him, and how she worked hard to build her business. "You were poor once, ma'am?" Tobias asked, surprised. "Very poor." Beatrice said, "My sister Marjorie and I shared one dress between us. We ate rice and beans every single day, but I never gave up. I dreamed of a better life, and I worked hard to get it." "That's amazing," Tobias said with admiration. "You're like a superhero." Beatrice laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. "I'm no superhero, Tobias. I'm just a person who kept going even when things were hard." "That's what makes you a superhero," Tobias said. "Seriously?" They talked for hours about life, about dreams, about God, and faith. Tobias told Beatrice how he prayed every night, even though he slept on cold streets. "I believe God has a plan for me," he said. "I don't know what it is yet, but I believe it." Beatrice was amazed. This child had more faith than anyone she knew. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and purple, Tobias stood up. "I should go, ma'am. Thank you so much for the food and for being so kind to me. This was the best day I've had in years." "Where will you sleep tonight?" Beatrice asked, worried. "Oh, there's a spot behind the library where they have a vent that blows warm air," Tobias said casually. "It's not too bad." Beatrice's heart hurt. She couldn't let this child sleep on the streets. Not tonight. Not after the gift he had given her. The gift of company, of kindness, of reminding her that good people still existed in the world. "Tobias," Beatrice said carefully, "how would you like to stay here tonight?" Tobias's eyes went wide with shock. "Stay here in your house, ma'am. Are you sure?" "I'm very sure," Beatrice said with a warm smile. "I have 15 bedrooms in this mansion, and all of them are empty. You can pick whichever one you like, and tomorrow morning we'll have breakfast together." Tobias couldn't believe what he was hearing. A real bed, a safe place to sleep. It seemed too good to be true. "But ma'am, what if your family comes? Won't they be angry?" Beatrice's smile faded a little. She looked out the window at the darkening sky. "My family didn't come today, Tobias, and I don't think they will. But it's your birthday," Tobias said, confused. "How could they not come?" Beatrice sighed deeply. "Sometimes, Tobias, people forget what's important. They get so busy with their own lives that they forget about the people who love them." Tobias thought about this. Even though he had nothing, he would never forget someone who loved him. If he had a mother or father, he would visit them every single day. "That's sad, ma'am," Tobias said quietly. "If you were my family, I would never forget you. Not even for one day." Beatrice felt tears coming to her eyes again. This child, this beautiful, pure-hearted child, understood love better than her own children did. "Thank you, Tobias," she said softly. "That means more to me than you know. Now come on, let me show you where you can sleep." Beatrice led Tobias up the grand staircase. His bare feet sank into the thick carpet. She showed him a bedroom on the second floor that was bigger than any place Tobias had ever lived. It had a huge bed with soft pillows and a thick blanket. There was a window with curtains that looked out over the garden, a closet full of clean towels, and best of all, a bathroom with a real shower. "This room is yours for tonight," Beatrice said. "There are clean towels in the bathroom. Take a nice hot shower. I'll find some clean clothes for you to wear. They might be a bit big, but they'll be better than what you have on now." After Beatrice left, Tobias stood in the middle of the room for a long moment, wondering if this was all a dream. Would he wake up on the cold street hungry and alone? He pinched himself. It hurt. This was real. He went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. Hot water poured out, filling the room with steam. Tobias stepped under it and felt years of dirt and sadness washing away. He scrubbed his skin until it was clean. He washed his hair with shampoo that smelled like coconuts. He stayed in that shower for minutes, enjoying the warmth. When he came out, he found clean clothes folded on the bed, a soft t-shirt and sweatpants. They were too big for him, but they were clean and warm. Tobias put them on and looked at himself in the mirror. He barely recognized the boy staring back at him. Clean, fresh, almost normal looking. He climbed into the big bed and pulled the soft blanket over himself. The mattress was so comfortable that Tobias thought he might be lying on a cloud. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. "Thank you, God, for Mrs. Beatrice. Please bless her and keep her safe. And please help her family to remember how special she is. Amen." Within minutes, Tobias was fast asleep, sleeping more peacefully than he had in years. Downstairs, Beatrice sat in her living room, feeling more alive than she had felt in months. Today had started as the loneliest day of her life, but Tobias had changed everything. He reminded her why she worked so hard all those years. Not for money, not for a big house, but to make a difference, to help people, to show kindness. She picked up her phone and looked at it one more time. Still no messages from Serena, Donovan, or Marjorie. It was late at night now. Her birthday was almost over, and her family had completely forgotten her. Beatrice felt the familiar sadness creeping back into her heart. But then she thought about Tobias sleeping upstairs, safe and warm for the first time in years, and she smiled. Maybe blood relatives weren't the only kind of family that mattered. She was about to turn off her phone when suddenly she heard a car pulling into the driveway. Then another car. Then voices outside. Beatrice stood up, her heart beating fast. Were they here? Had her children finally remembered? The front door burst open, and in walked Serena, wearing an expensive designer dress and high heels. Behind her came Donovan in a fancy suit, and behind him was Marjorie, carrying a small gift bag. "Surprise!" they all shouted together, though their voices didn't sound very excited. Beatrice stood there frozen. It was late at night. Her birthday was almost over, and now they showed up. "Happy birthday, Mom," Serena said, walking over and giving Beatrice a quick hug that felt cold and fake. "Sorry we're late. I had a hair appointment that ran long." "Yeah, happy birthday," Donovan said, barely looking at his mother. He was typing on his phone. "I had some business meetings that I couldn't get out of." Marjorie handed Beatrice the small gift bag. "Happy birthday, sister. I would have come earlier, but you know how busy life gets." Beatrice took the gift bag slowly. She wanted to feel happy that they came, but something felt wrong. Very wrong. "We brought champagne," Serena said, holding up an expensive bottle. "Let's celebrate." Donovan walked into the living room and plopped down on the couch like he owned the place. "This house is so big, Mom. When are you going to downsize? You don't need all this space." "I brought some snacks," Marjorie said, putting a small box of cookies on the table. "I know it's not much, but I'm a little short on money this month. Maybe you could help me out." There it was. They hadn't even been in the house for minutes, and Marjorie was already asking for money. Beatrice felt her heart sinking. They didn't come because they loved her. They didn't come because they missed her. They came out of obligation. And maybe because they wanted something. "Let's have some cake," Serena said, walking toward the kitchen. "You did make a cake, right, Mom?" Beatrice followed them into the kitchen, feeling tired and sick. The birthday cake sat on the counter, but most of it was already gone. She and Tobias had eaten it together hours ago. "Mom, why is there only half a cake left?" Serena asked, annoyed. "Did you eat your birthday cake by yourself?" "That's kind of sad." "I didn't eat it by myself," Beatrice said quietly. "I shared it with a guest." "A guest?" Donovan said, looking up from his phone for the first time. The top of the staircase, rubbing his eyes, the top of the staircase, rubbing his eyes sleepily. He had heard voices and woke up. When he saw the strangers in the house, he froze. Serena, Donovan, and Marjorie all stared at Tobias with their mouths open. "Who is that?" Serena said, her voice sharp and mean. "That's my guest," Beatrice said firmly. "His name is Tobias." "Your guest," Donovan said, standing up. "Mom, that's a street kid. Look at him. What is he doing in our house?" "This is my house," Beatrice said, her voice stronger now. "And Tobias is my guest. I invited him to stay." Marjorie walked closer to the stairs, staring at Tobias like he was a bug. "Beatrice, have you lost your mind? You can't just bring homeless children into your home. He probably has diseases. He probably wants to rob you." "He's not going to rob anyone," Beatrice said angrily. "He's a good boy who needed help, and I helped him." "A good boy," Donovan said with a nasty laugh. He started walking toward the stairs. "He's a beggar. The thief." "Mom, where's your jewelry? Did you check?" "I bet he's already stolen half of it." "I didn't steal anything," Tobias said, his voice shaking. "I would never." "Shut up," Serena screamed at him. "Nobody asked you to speak, you little rat." Tobias flinched like he'd been hit. Beatrice saw tears forming in the boy's eyes. "Don't you dare speak to him like that," Beatrice said, stepping between her daughter and Tobias. But Donovan was already climbing the stairs toward Tobias. Donovan grabbed Tobias by the arm roughly. Beatrice shouted, but she felt weak. Her sickness made it hard to move fast. Donovan grabbed Tobias by the arm roughly. Tobias cried out in pain. "Let him go!" Beatrice screamed. "This dirty street trash doesn't belong here!" Donovan yelled, dragging Tobias down the stairs. Tobias tried to pull away, but Donovan was too strong. "Please, sir, you're hurting me," Tobias cried. "Good," Donovan said cruelly. "Maybe that'll teach you not to sneak into people's houses." Serena joined in, pushing Tobias toward the door. "You came here to trick our mother to steal from her. Well, we're not stupid. Get out. Get out. Get out." Marjorie opened the front door. "Go back to whatever gutter you crawled out of." They shoved Tobias out the door so hard that he fell on the driveway, scraping his hands on the concrete. The clean clothes Beatrice had given him got dirty again. Tobias looked up at them with tears streaming down his face. "I didn't do anything wrong," Tobias said, sobbing. I just wanted to celebrate her birthday with her." "Well, she doesn't need you," Donovan shouted. "She has a real family. Now get lost before I call the police and tell them you're a trespasser." Tobias stood up slowly, his hands bleeding from the fall. He looked past Donovan and Serena and Marjorie, trying to see Mrs. Beatrice. She was standing in the doorway, crying, looking weak and helpless. "Thank you for the food, Mrs. Beatrice," Tobias called out, his voice breaking. "And happy birthday. I'll never forget your kindness." Then he turned and ran down the driveway through the gate and disappeared into the dark street. Donovan slammed the door shut. Finally, that little pest is gone. Beatrice stood there shaking, not from her sickness this time, but from rage and heartbreak. She looked at her children and her sister, and for the first time in her life, she saw them clearly. She saw them for who they really were. They weren't busy. They weren't stressed. They were selfish. They were cruel. They were monsters. "How could you?" Beatrice whispered. "How could you treat a child like that?" "Oh, please, Mom," Serena said, walking to the kitchen and pouring herself some champagne. "We did you a favor. That kid was obviously playing you. He probably does this to rich old people all the time." "He wasn't playing me," Beatrice said, her voice getting louder. "He's an orphan. He's been living on the streets for years. He came here asking for food, and I gave it to him. That's called kindness. That's called being a decent human being, something you three know nothing about." "Don't yell at us," Donovan said coldly. "We came here for your birthday, and this is the thanks we get." "You came here at night," Beatrice shouted. "Night. My birthday started this morning. I waited all day for you. I sat here alone, sick, dying, hoping one of you would remember me. And nobody came. Nobody called. Nobody cared." "We're here now, aren't we?" Marjorie said, annoyed. "You're here now because you felt guilty," Beatrice said, tears running down her face. "Or because you want something from me. That's the only time any of you ever show up. When you need money? When you want something?" "That's not fair," Serena said, but she didn't sound convincing. "Isn't it?" Beatrice said, "When was the last time any of you visited me just to visit? When was the last time you called me just to ask how I'm feeling? When was the last time you did anything for me without expecting something in return?" The room went quiet. None of them had an answer. Beatrice looked at each of them one by one. Serena, who spent her days shopping and partying with Beatrice's money. Donovan, who stole from Beatrice's business account and didn't even hide it. Marjorie, who always had her hand out, always asking for loans she never paid back. And then she thought about Tobias, a boy who had nothing, a boy who was hungry and homeless. But when she invited him in, he worried about making her floor dirty. When she gave him food, he asked if she was going to eat too. When she offered him a place to sleep, he thanked God in his prayers. He didn't ask her for money. He didn't demand anything. He just showed her kindness and respect. "That boy has more goodness in his heart than all three of you combined," Beatrice said quietly. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Donovan said, throwing his hands up. "Are you seriously comparing us to some street kid?" "Yes," Beatrice said firmly. "And he wins. He treated me better in one afternoon than you've treated me in years." "You're being ridiculous," Serena said, drinking her champagne. "You're sick. You're emotional. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have," Beatrice said. "And I see exactly who you are. All of you. You don't love me. You love my money." "That's not true," Marjorie said, but even she didn't sound sure. "Prove it then," Beatrice said. "Stay here with me tonight. Talk to me. Spend time with me. Not because it's my birthday, not because you want something, just because you care." Donovan checked his watch. "I can't. I have plans later tonight." "I have an early yoga class tomorrow," Serena said. "I'm really tired," Marjorie added. "Maybe another time." There it was, the truth. Beatrice asked for one thing, just their time, and they all had excuses. Beatrice walked slowly to the couch and sat down. She suddenly felt very, very tired. The sickness was pulling at her, making her body hurt, but the emotional pain hurt even more. "Get out," Beatrice said quietly. "What?" Donovan said. "Get out of my house," Beatrice repeated louder. "This time all of you leave." "Mom, come on," Serena said. "Don't be like this." I said, "Get out!" Beatrice screamed with whatever strength she had left. "Get out, and don't come back unless you're ready to act like real family." Donovan grabbed his car keys. "Fine, we'll go, but don't come crying to us later." "Yeah," Serena said, grabbing her purse. "Maybe you should have thought about this before you chose that street kid over us." They walked toward the door. Marjorie paused and looked back at Beatrice. "Beatrice, I still need that loan I asked about. Can we talk about it later this week?" Even now, even after everything Marjorie was asking for money, Beatrice just shook her head sadly. "Goodbye, Marjorie." They left, slamming the door behind them. Beatrice heard their car start and drive away. And then the house was silent again, empty again, lonely again. But this time, Beatrice wasn't just sad. She was angry and disappointed and heartbroken, because tonight she finally understood the truth. Her children didn't love her. They loved what she could give them. And that was the most painful realization of all. Beatrice sat in her living room crying, not just for herself, but for Tobias too. That poor boy had been treated so cruelly. He had been pushed and insulted and thrown out like garbage. And for what? For being poor? For accepting kindness when it was offered? Beatrice wiped her tears and made a decision. Tomorrow she would find Tobias. She would apologize. She would make this right. But tonight, she sat alone in her mansion, surrounded by expensive things that meant nothing, missing the one person who had actually made her birthday special. Meanwhile, Tobias ran through the dark streets, tears blurring his vision. His hands stung from where he had scraped them on the driveway. The clean clothes Mrs. Beatrice had given him were dirty again. But what hurt most wasn't his hands or his pride. It was his heart. For a few beautiful hours, he had felt like he mattered, like he was worth something. Mrs. Beatrice had treated him like a real person, like someone important. She had washed his feet. She had fed him at her table. She had given him a bed to sleep in. She had made him feel loved. But her family had reminded him of the truth. He was just a street kid, just a beggar, just someone people looked down on. Tobias found his usual sleeping spot behind the library. The warm air vent was blowing like always, but tonight it didn't feel warm enough. Nothing felt warm anymore. He curled up against the wall, hugging his knees to his chest. He thought about Mrs. Beatrice's kind face, her gentle smile, the way she had listened to his stories like they mattered, the way she had told him that dreams could come true. But dreams don't come true for kids like me. Tobias whispered to himself in the darkness. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but he kept seeing the angry faces of Mrs. Beatrice's children. The way they had grabbed him, the way they had called him names, the way they had pushed him out the door like he was trash. Tobias cried himself to sleep that night, wondering if he would ever feel safe and loved again. The next morning, the sun woke Tobias up early. His body ached from sleeping on the hard ground. His stomach growled with hunger. The wonderful meal from yesterday felt like a distant dream. He stood up slowly and started walking down the street, looking for food. Maybe someone would throw away some bread. Maybe someone would drop some change. Maybe. Tobias stopped walking. He couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Beatrice. Was she okay? Her family had been so mean to her, too. They had yelled at her. They had made her cry. And she was sick. Very sick. What if she needed help? What if she was alone again, sad and lonely like she had been yesterday morning? Tobias stood on the corner thinking hard. Part of him was scared to go back to that mansion. What if her children were still there? What if they called the police like they had threatened? What if they hurt him worse this time? But another part of him, the bigger part, knew what he had to do. Mrs. Beatrice had been kind to him when nobody else was. She had treated him with dignity and love. And now she needed someone. She needed a friend. Tobias made up his mind. He would go back, not for food this time, not for a place to sleep, but because Mrs. Beatrice needed him, and real friends show up when someone needs them. He walked back to Maple Street. His bare feet hurt on the hot sidewalk, but he kept going. When he reached the mansion, he stood outside the gate for a long time, gathering his courage. The house looked quiet. No cars in the driveway. Maybe her children had left. Maybe it was safe to check on her. Tobias quietly opened the gate and walked up to the house. Instead of going to the front door where someone might see him, he went around to the back. There was a beautiful garden there with flowers and trees and a small patio. And there, lying on a chair on the patio, was Mrs. Beatrice. Tobias's heart jumped with worry. She was lying very still, her face red and painful looking. She had fallen asleep in the sun, and now her skin was burned. Her breathing sounded difficult. "Mrs. Beatrice," Tobias called softly, walking closer. Beatrice's eyes opened slowly. She looked confused at first, like she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. Then she saw Tobias, and tears filled her eyes. "Tobias," she whispered, "you came back." "I had to," Tobias said, kneeling beside her chair. "I was worried about you, Mrs. Beatrice. Your skin is really burned. You've been in the sun too long." Beatrice tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "I came out here after they left last night. I couldn't sleep. I must have fallen asleep out here by accident. Oh, Tobias, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for how they treated you." "It's okay," Tobias said, though his voice shook a little. "It's not your fault." "It is my fault," Beatrice said, starting to cry. "I raised them. I gave them everything, and they turned out to be cruel and selfish. But you have nothing, and you have the biggest heart I've ever seen. You came back even after they hurt you." "Because you were kind to me," Tobias said simply. "And I think you need help right now. Let me help you inside. We need to get something on your sunburn." Tobias helped Beatrice stand up slowly. She was weak and dizzy. He put her arm around his shoulder and walked her carefully back into the house. Even though he was just a small boy, he was strong from living on the streets. He knew how to survive. He knew how to take care of himself. And now he would take care of Mrs. Beatrice. Inside, Tobias sat Beatrice down on the couch. "Do you have any aloe vera?" he asked. "Or lotion for burns?" Beatrice pointed weakly toward the bathroom upstairs in the medicine cabinet. There should be some cream there. Tobias ran upstairs and found the cream. He also grabbed a clean towel and wet it with cool water. When he came back down, he gently applied the cool towel to Beatrice's sunburned face and arms. "That feels better," Beatrice sighed. "Thank you, Tobias." Tobias then carefully put the cream on her burns. His hands were gentle and careful. "My mom used to do this when I got sunburned," he said quietly. Before the fire, Beatrice watched this young boy taking care of her, and her heart filled with love. Here was a child who had lost everything: his parents, his home, his childhood, and yet he still knew how to love. He still knew how to give. "Tobias," Beatrice said, "I need to tell you something. I'm very sick. The doctors say I only have a few months left to live." Tobias's hand stopped moving. He looked at her with wide, scared eyes. You're dying." Beatrice nodded sadly. "Yes, I have an illness that can't be cured. That's why yesterday meant so much to me. You gave me the best birthday I've had in years, maybe the best birthday I've ever had." Tobias felt tears running down his face. "But that's not fair. You're such a good person. Why do bad things happen to good people?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Beatrice said softly. "But I've learned something important. It's not about how long you live. It's about how you live. And yesterday, you reminded me how to live with joy and kindness." Tobias wiped his tears. "Can I stay with you? I mean, not forever. I know I can't. But maybe I can help you. I can get you water when you need it. I can make sure you eat. I can keep you company so you're not lonely. Please." Beatrice's heart broke and healed at the same time. "Tobias, you would do that for me even after what my family did to you." "Your family was mean," Tobias said honestly. "But you weren't mean. You were the nicest person I've ever met. And I don't want you to be alone anymore." Beatrice pulled Tobias into a gentle hug, careful of her sunburned skin. "Then, yes, Tobias, please stay. Stay as long as you want. You can have that bedroom upstairs. You can eat meals with me. You can be my family." "Really?" Tobias said, his voice full of hope. "You mean it?" "I mean it," Beatrice said. "From now on, you're not just my guest. You're my friend, my companion, my boy." Tobias hugged her tighter. For the first time since his parents died in that fire years ago, he felt like he had a home again. Over the next few weeks, Tobias became Beatrice's caretaker. Every morning, he woke up early and made her tea the way she liked it. He helped her take her medicine. He read to her from books in her library. He told her funny stories to make her laugh. He pushed her wheelchair through the garden when she was too weak to walk. And Beatrice taught Tobias things too. She helped him practice his reading and math. She told him stories about business and life. She taught him about kindness and dignity and standing up for what's right. They became best friends. The dying millionaire and the street boy. Two people who had nothing in common except loneliness, who found everything they needed in each other. Beatrice's children never came back to visit. They called sometimes, but only to ask about money or to complain about something. Beatrice's sister Marjorie called twice, both times asking for loans. Beatrice said no every time now. One evening, as Tobias was helping Beatrice eat her dinner, she looked at him seriously. "Tobias, I need to tell you something important," she said. "I need you to listen very carefully." Tobias put down the spoon and gave her his full attention. "I'm listening, Mrs. Beatrice." "I've made a very important decision," Beatrice said. "And I've done something that my children are not going to like, but it's the right thing to do. I know it in my heart." Tobias looked at her with worried eyes. "What decision, Mrs. Beatrice? Are you okay?" Beatrice took a deep breath. "A few days ago, I called my lawyer. His name is Reginald Thorne. He's been my lawyer for years, and he's a good, honest man. I asked him to come to the house." "A lawyer?" Tobias said nervously. "Am I in trouble? Do I have to leave?" No, sweetheart," Beatrice said quickly, reaching out to hold his hand. "You're not in trouble. Just the opposite." "Tobias," I asked Reginald to help me change my will. Tobias didn't understand what that meant. What's a will? A will is a legal document, Beatrice explained gently. It tells people what should happen to your money and property after you die. Who gets your house, your business, your bank accounts, everything. Tobias nodded slowly, starting to understand. So you wrote down who gets your stuff when you're gone. Exactly, Beatrice said, and Tobias, I want you to know what I decided. Before I met you, my will said that everything would be split between my two children, Serena and Donovan. They would each get half of everything I own. That makes sense, Tobias said. They're your children. But they're not good children, Beatrice said, her voice firm. They don't love me. They love my money. And I've realized something important. Family isn't just about blood. Family is about love, about loyalty, about showing up when someone needs you. Beatrice squeezed Tobias's hand tighter. You showed up, Tobias. You came back even after they hurt you. You took care of me when I was sick. You made me laugh when I was sad. You gave me more love in these few weeks than my own children gave me in years. Tobias felt his heart beating faster. He wasn't sure where this was going, but it felt important. So I changed my will, Beatrice continued. I took Serena and Donovan out of it completely, and I put someone else in. Who? Tobias asked. Beatrice smiled, tears running down her face. You, Tobias. I made you my sole heir. That means when I die, everything I own will go to you. The house, the business, the money in the bank, everything. It all belongs to you. Tobias's mouth dropped open. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Me? But I'm nobody. I'm just a street kid. You are not nobody, Beatrice said strongly. You are Tobias, the bravest, kindest, most wonderful boy I've ever known. And you deserve a chance at a good life. You deserve to have your dreams come true. But what about your children? Tobias asked, worried. Won't they be really, really angry? Yes, Beatrice said honestly. They will be furious. They'll probably try to fight it in court. They'll probably say terrible things about you and about me. But Reginald assured me that the will is legal and strong. As long as I'm of sound mind when I sign it, which I am, it will hold up in court. Tobias felt overwhelmed. Mrs. Beatrice, I don't know what to say. I never wanted your money. I just wanted to help you. I know, sweetheart, Beatrice said. That's exactly why you deserve it. If you had wanted my money, I never would have given it to you. But you wanted something more valuable. Friendship and love. And that tells me you'll use this gift the right way. What do you mean? Tobias asked. Beatrice smiled. I mean that I trust you to continue my legacy. I made my money by working hard and being honest, but I also made it so I could help people. I've donated to charities, helped people start businesses, supported children who needed education, and I want you to do the same. She pulled out an envelope from beside her chair. This is a letter I wrote for you. Inside, I've written down everything I want you to know. How to handle money wisely, how to finish your education, how to help other children who are living on the streets like you were. Tobias, I want you to take this money and make the world better. Tobias took the envelope with shaking hands. I promise I will, Mrs. Beatrice. I promise I'll make you proud. You already have, Beatrice said. Every single day. They sat together quietly for a moment, holding hands. Then Beatrice spoke again, her voice more serious. Tobias, there's something else I need to tell you. Something very important. My lawyer, Reginald, lives at 42 Oak Street. His office is the blue building on the corner. I need you to remember that address. Can you do that? 42 Oak Street, Tobias repeated. Blue building on the corner. Why do I need to remember that? Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. Because when I die, my children will find out about the will, and they will be very angry. They might try to scare you or hurt you or make you go away. If that happens, I need you to go straight to Reginald's office. He will protect you. He will make sure you're safe. Promise me you'll remember. I promise, Tobias said, feeling scared now. But Mrs. Beatrice, don't talk about dying. Maybe you'll get better. Maybe the doctors were wrong. Beatrice smiled sadly. I wish that were true, sweetheart. But I can feel my body getting weaker every day. I don't think I have much time left. Then I'll take even better care of you, Tobias said, his voice determined. I'll make sure every day you have left is a good day. And that's exactly what Tobias did. Every morning, he brought Beatrice breakfast in bed. Every afternoon, he pushed her wheelchair through the garden, and they looked at the flowers together. Every evening, he read to her until she fell asleep. Beatrice grew weaker, but she also grew happier. Tobias's presence was like medicine for her lonely heart. She laughed more in those weeks than she had in years. One day, Beatrice asked Tobias to bring her something from her bedroom. There's a wooden box on my dresser. She said, Can you bring it to me? Tobias brought her the beautiful wooden box. Inside were old photographs. Beatrice picked up one photo and smiled. This is me when I was your age, she said, showing Tobias a picture of a young girl with a bright smile. I was poor, just like you. I wore the same dress every day. I never had enough to eat. But I had dreams, Tobias, big dreams, and I never gave up on them. Tobias looked at the photo in amazement. You really were like me. I was you, Beatrice said. That's why I understand you so well, and that's why I believe in you so much. If I could go from that poor little girl to where I am now, imagine what you can do. You're smarter than I was. You're kinder than I was. You're going to do amazing things, Tobias. Tobias felt tears in his eyes. I hope so. I want to make you proud. You will, Beatrice said confidently. She pulled out another photograph from the box. This one is for you to keep. It's my favorite picture of myself. I want you to have it so you can remember me when I'm gone. The photograph showed Beatrice as a young woman, standing in front of her first furniture store. She looked strong and proud and happy. I'll keep it forever, Tobias promised, holding the photo carefully. And I'll look at it whenever I need to remember to be brave. That's my boy, Beatrice said, patting his hand. Days passed. Beatrice grew weaker and weaker. She could barely eat now. She slept most of the day. But whenever she was awake, Tobias was there, holding her hand, talking to her, making sure she wasn't alone. One night, Beatrice's breathing became very difficult. Tobias stayed by her bedside, scared, but trying to be brave for her. Tobias, Beatrice whispered, her voice very weak. Come closer. Tobias leaned in close so he could hear her. I need you to be strong, Beatrice said, struggling with each word. When I'm gone, remember everything I taught you. Remember that you're special. Remember that you're loved. Remember that dreams come true for those who never give up. I'll remember, Tobias said, tears streaming down his face. I promise I'll remember everything. And Tobias, Beatrice continued, her eyes looking into his. When they read my will, when everyone finds out, don't be afraid. Reginald will protect you. The law will protect you, and I'll be watching over you from heaven. Please don't go, Tobias sobbed. Please don't leave me alone again. You won't be alone, Beatrice whispered. You'll have Reginald. You'll have your future. You'll have all those children you're going to help someday. And you'll have my love forever. Beatrice reached up with her weak hand and touched Tobias's face gently. Thank you for giving me the best final chapter of my life. Thank you for reminding me what love really is. Thank you for saving me, Tobias said, holding her hand against his cheek. Thank you for being my family. Beatrice smiled one last time. You were the best birthday present I ever received. Her eyes closed slowly. Her breathing became softer and softer. And then, peacefully, like someone falling asleep after a long, tiring day, Beatrice Langford took her last breath. Tobias sat there holding her hand, crying. He cried for the woman who had saved him. He cried for the friend he had lost. He cried for the only person who had truly loved him in long years. But even through his tears, Tobias knew something important. Mrs. Beatrice had given him more than money or a house. She had given him hope. She had given him a future. She had given him the courage to dream again. And he would honor her memory by becoming the person she believed he could be. Tobias stayed with Beatrice until morning came. Then, with shaking hands, he called the numbers she had written down for emergencies. He called Reginald Thorne, the lawyer. Mr. Thorne, Tobias said when a man answered. This is Tobias, Mrs. Beatrice. She's gone. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Reginald's kind voice said, I'll be right there, son. Don't move. Don't let anyone in. I'm coming to help you. Tobias hung up and sat back down beside Beatrice. He held her hand one more time and whispered, I won't let you down, Mrs. Beatrice. I promise. Within an hour, Reginald Thorne arrived at the mansion. He was a tall man in his 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes behind his glasses. He wore a dark suit and carried a briefcase. Tobias opened the door, his eyes red from crying. You must be Tobias, Reginald said gently. Mrs. Beatrice told me a lot about you. She did? Tobias asked, wiping his tears. Oh yes, Reginald said with a small smile. She called you her miracle. She said you gave her joy in her final days. That's a beautiful gift you gave her, young man. Reginald went upstairs to see Beatrice. He made some phone calls to the doctor, to the funeral home, to people who needed to know. Tobias listened as Reginald handled everything with calm professionalism. When Reginald came back downstairs, he sat down with Tobias in the living room. Tobias, I know this is a very difficult time, Reginald said, but there are some things we need to talk about. Mrs. Beatrice made me promise to take care of you, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, Tobias said quietly. First, you need to know that Mrs. Beatrice's children, Serena and Donovan, will need to be informed that their mother has passed away. They will come here probably very soon, and they're going to be well. They're going to be difficult because of the will. Tobias asked. Reginald looked surprised. She told you about the will? Tobias nodded. She said she made me her heir. She said they would be angry. That's putting it mildly, Reginald said with a sigh. Tobias, when they find out that you've inherited everything, they're going to be furious. They might say terrible things to you. They might try to scare you. But I need you to understand something very important. The will is completely legal. Mrs. Beatrice was of sound mind when she signed it. She knew exactly what she was doing. And no matter what they say or do, that will cannot be easily broken. What should I do when they come? Tobias asked, feeling scared. Stay calm, Reginald said. Don't argue with them. Don't let them bully you. And most importantly, don't sign anything they give you. Nothing. Even if they say it's just a simple form or document, you sign nothing without me looking at it first. Do you understand? I understand, Tobias said. Good, Reginald said. Now, I'm going to make the phone calls to Serena and Donovan. In the meantime, I want you to pack up anything that's important to you. The photograph Mrs. Beatrice gave you the letter she wrote any clothes she bought for you. Put them all in a bag and keep that bag with you at all times. Why? Tobias asked. Because when they arrive, they might try to throw you out, Reginald explained honestly. And I want to make sure you have your important things with you when that happens. But don't worry, you won't be on the streets again. If they force you to leave this house, you'll come home with me. My wife and I have a spare bedroom, and you're welcome to stay there until we sort everything out. Tobias felt a wave of relief. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. You're very kind, just like Mrs. Beatrice said. Mrs. Beatrice was special, Reginald said, his voice sad. I've been her lawyer for years, and I watched her children break her heart over and over again. I'm glad she found you, Tobias. You made her last days happy. That means everything. Reginald made the phone calls. Tobias could hear him speaking in a serious professional voice. Serena, this is Reginald Thorne, your mother's lawyer. I'm calling with difficult news. Your mother passed away this morning. Yes. I'm very sorry. The funeral arrangements will be made this week. Yes, there will be a reading of the will. I'll send you the details. The same conversation happened with Donovan and then with Marjorie. After Reginald hung up, he looked at Tobias. They're on their way. Serena said she'd be here in an hour. Donovan and Marjorie are coming too. It's going to get ugly. Tobias, are you ready? I think so, Tobias said, though his hands were shaking. Remember, Reginald said, putting a reassuring hand on Tobias's shoulder. You have every right to be here. Mrs. Beatrice wanted you here, and I will not let them hurt you. They didn't have to wait long. Less than an hour later, Tobias heard cars pulling up outside, doors slamming, voices shouting. His heart started beating fast. The front door burst open. Serena stormed in, wearing all black, like she was already dressed for the funeral. Behind her came Donovan, looking angry. And behind him came Marjorie, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, though Tobias noticed she wasn't actually crying. Where is she? Serena demanded. Where's our mother? Upstairs, Reginald said calmly. The funeral home will be here soon too. Serena pushed past him and ran upstairs. Donovan followed her. Tobias could hear them crying and wailing upstairs, though it sounded fake to his ears. They hadn't visited their mother in weeks, but now they were acting like they were heartbroken. Marjorie saw Tobias sitting on the couch, and her eyes narrowed. Yo, what are you doing here? Didn't we throw you out? Mrs. Beatrice invited me back, Tobias said quietly, trying to remember what Reginald had told him. Stay calm, don't argue. Invited you back, Marjorie said with a nasty laugh. Oh, I see what happened. You came back and tricked my poor sick sister. You took advantage of her. I did not, Tobias said, his voice rising. I took care of her. I was here when she needed someone, and you weren't. How dare you? Marjorie shouted, taking a step toward Tobias. Reginald immediately stood between them. Mrs. Marjorie, I suggest you step back. Tobias is here at Mrs. Beatrice's request, and he has every right to be here. We'll see about that, Marjorie said coldly. Serena and Donovan came back downstairs. Serena's makeup was running from her fake tears. Donovan's face was red with anger. I can't believe she's gone, Serena sobbed dramatically. My poor mother. She died alone. She didn't die alone, Tobias said before he could stop himself. I was with her. I held her hand. She wasn't alone. All three of them turned to stare at Tobias like he was an insect they wanted to crush. You were with her? Donovan said, his voice dangerous. You some street rat she picked up off the sidewalk. Donovan, please, Reginald said firmly. This is not the time or place. No, I want to know, Donovan shouted, pointing at Tobias. What was he doing here? Why was he with our mother when she died and we weren't? Because I was here every day, Tobias said, his voice shaking but honest. I took care of her. I fed her. I read to her. I made sure she took her medicine. Where were you? The room went silent. Serena, Donovan, and Marjorie all stared at Tobias with hatred in their eyes. You little Donovan started moving toward Tobias. Enough, Reginald said loudly, stepping between them again. Everyone needs to calm down. This is not helping anyone. Fine, Serena said, trying to control her anger. We're calm now, Reginald. We need to discuss the funeral arrangements and the estate. We need to start going through Mother's papers, her bank accounts, her properties. All of that will be handled at the appropriate time, Reginald said professionally. The funeral will be held in days at St. Mary's Church. After the funeral, we will have the reading of the will. The will, Donovan said, a greedy look in his eyes. Yes, I assume everything is split 50-50 between Serena and me, like Mother always said it would be. Reginald's face remained neutral. The contents of the will shall be revealed at the reading as is proper, not before. Oh, come on, Reginald, Marjorie said. We're family. Surely you can tell us now. No, Reginald said firmly. I cannot and will not. The reading will happen after the funeral as Mrs. Beatrice requested. Everyone named in the will shall be present. Everyone named in the will, Serena said suspiciously. Who else is named in the will besides Donovan and me? Reginald said nothing, but his eyes briefly flickered toward Tobias. Donovan caught the look. His face turned red with rage. No, no! Tell me that street kid is not in my mother's will. The contents of the will, Reginald began. Answer me, Donovan screamed. Reginald stood tall, his voice firm and commanding. Mr. Donovan, I will not be bullied or intimidated in this manner. The reading of the will shall take place after the funeral, and not 1 moment before. That is final. If you cannot control yourself, I will ask you to leave this house immediately. Donovan's hands clenched into fists. His whole body was shaking with rage. This is my mother's house. I don't have to leave. Actually, Reginald said calmly, this house belongs to Mrs. Beatrice's estate until the will is properly executed. And as the executor of that estate, I have the authority to remove anyone who is causing a disturbance. So, I suggest you calm down, or you will be escorted out. Serena grabbed her brother's arm. Donovan, stop it. We'll wait for the reading. It's only days. She said this, but her eyes were cold and calculating as they looked at Tobias. I'm sure Mother did the right thing and left everything to her real children. Tobias felt sick to his stomach. He wanted to run away, to hide, to disappear. But he remembered Mrs. Beatrice's words. Be brave. Be strong. Don't let them scare you. I think it's best if we all leave now, Reginald said. The funeral home will be here soon to take care of Mrs. Beatrice. We'll meet again at the church in days for the funeral service. Tobias, gather your things. You're coming with me? What? Marjorie said sharply. He's going with you. Why would you take him? Because Mrs. Beatrice asked me to look after him, Reginald said simply. And that's what I intend to do." "This is ridiculous," Donovan shouted. "That boy has been here for weeks, probably stealing from Mother, filling her head with lies." "That is enough," Reginald said, his voice like ice. "I will not allow you to slander this child. Tobias provided care and companionship to your mother during her final days, which is more than any of you did. Now, I suggest you leave before you say something you'll regret." Serena's eyes narrowed. She looked at Tobias with pure hatred. "We'll see what the will says. And if you've done anything to manipulate my mother, if you've tricked her in any way, we will destroy you." Tobias wanted to say something back, but Reginald put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't respond," Reginald whispered. "Let them leave." One by one, Serena, Donovan, and Marjorie left the mansion, each one giving Tobias a look of pure poison as they walked out. When the door finally closed behind them, Tobias let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "You did well," Reginald said. "You stayed calm. You spoke the truth. Mrs. Beatrice would be proud of you." "I'm scared, Mr. Thorne," Tobias admitted. "They hate me so much." "They don't hate you," Reginald said. "They hate what you represent. You represent their own failures as children. You represent the fact that a stranger showed more love to their mother than they did. That's a hard truth for them to face, so they're taking it out on you." Tobias went upstairs to the bedroom he had been staying in. He packed his few belongings, the clean clothes Mrs. Beatrice had bought him, the photograph she had given him, the letter she had written. Everything fit in one small bag. He took one last look at the room. Just a few weeks ago, this had felt like a dream. A poor street boy sleeping in a mansion, being cared for and loved, having a family again. Now Mrs. Beatrice was gone, and Tobias felt more alone than ever. He went back downstairs where Reginald was waiting. "Ready?" Reginald asked kindly. Tobias nodded. They waited until the funeral home came and carefully, respectfully, took Mrs. Beatrice's body away. Tobias cried again, watching them carry her out. She looked so peaceful, so small. Then Tobias and Reginald left the mansion together. Reginald's car was nice, but not fancy. Inside, it smelled like coffee and old books. "My wife Eliza is looking forward to meeting you," Reginald said as he drove. "She's made up the guest room for you. We don't have any children of our own, so the house is pretty quiet. But you're welcome to stay as long as you need." "Thank you, sir," Tobias said quietly, looking out the window. They drove through the city to a neighborhood with smaller houses and big trees. Reginald's house was modest and comfortable, nothing like Mrs. Beatrice's mansion, but it felt warm and safe. Eliza Thorne was a kind woman with graying hair and a gentle smile. She hugged Tobias the moment she met him. "Oh, you poor dear," she said. "Reginald told me everything. I'm so sorry about Mrs. Beatrice, but you're safe here with us." She showed Tobias to a small bedroom with a comfortable bed, a desk, and a window that looked out at a garden. "Make yourself at home," she said. "If you need anything at all, just ask." That night at dinner, Tobias sat with Reginald and Eliza at their kitchen table. They ate homemade soup and bread, and Eliza asked Tobias about his life, about his dreams, about what he liked to do. Tobias found himself talking more than he had in years. He told them about his parents, about the fire, about living on the streets. He told them about meeting Mrs. Beatrice on her birthday and how she had changed his life. "She was a remarkable woman," Reginald said. "And she saw something special in you, Tobias. She told me that you reminded her of herself when she was young, poor but determined, struggling but hopeful." "Do you really think they'll try to fight the will?" Tobias asked. Reginald sighed. Yes, I do. They'll probably claim that Mrs. Beatrice wasn't thinking clearly because of her illness. They'll say you manipulated her or tricked her. They'll do everything they can to break the will. Will they win? Tobias asked, his heart sinking. No, Reginald said firmly. I promise you that. Mrs. Beatrice and I prepared for this. We knew exactly what her children would do, and we made sure the will was absolutely unbreakable. How long will it take? Tobias asked. Could be months, Reginald said honestly. Maybe even a year or more if they drag it through the courts. But in the end, justice will prevail. Mrs. Beatrice's wishes will be honored. And what about me? Tobias asked. Where do I live? What do I do? Reginald smiled. Well, that's the other part of Mrs. Beatrice's will. She asked me to become your legal guardian, to adopt you and raise you as my own son. Tobias's eyes went wide. Really? You would do that? We would be honored to do that, Eliza said, smiling through her tears. Reginald and I never had children of our own. We always wanted to, but it just never happened. And now it feels like God sent you to us. We would love to have you as part of our family, Tobias, if you'll have us. Tobias couldn't hold back his tears anymore. He cried and cried, but this time they were tears of joy and relief. Yes, he sobbed. Yes, I want that. I want a family again. Eliza and Reginald both hugged him, and for the first time since his parents died in that fire years ago, Tobias felt like he had a home. Over the next few months, everything happened just as Reginald predicted. Serena and Donovan hired expensive lawyers and filed a lawsuit. They claimed Mrs. Beatrice had been mentally incompetent due to her illness. They claimed Tobias had manipulated and tricked her. They even hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on Tobias, hoping to find something they could use against him. But there was nothing to find. Tobias was exactly who he appeared to be, a good kid who had suffered bad luck and found kindness from a dying woman. The case went to court. Tobias had to testify, which was scary. Serena and Donovan's lawyers asked him hard questions, trying to make him look bad. But Tobias told the truth. He explained how he had met Mrs. Beatrice on her birthday, how she had invited him in, how they had become friends, how he had taken care of her when she was sick. Then Reginald presented his evidence, the video of Mrs. Beatrice explaining her decision in her own words, the medical reports proving she was mentally sound. Testimony from Mrs. Whitaker, the cook, who confirmed that Tobias had indeed cared for Mrs. Beatrice every day. But the most powerful moment came when Reginald played a recording that Mrs. Beatrice had made just a week before she died. The courtroom went silent as her weak but clear voice filled the room. My name is Beatrice Langford. I am making this recording of my own free will while I am of sound mind. I want everyone to know that I am leaving my estate to Tobias, because he deserves it. My children stopped being my children a long time ago. They became strangers who only wanted my money. But Tobias showed me pure, unconditional love. He asked for nothing and gave everything. If my children contest this will, it will only prove that I was right about them. They care more about money than they ever cared about me. Tobias, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. But I want you to know, you were the best gift I received in my final days. You reminded me why I worked so hard all my life, not for money, but to make a difference. Now it's your turn. Use this gift wisely. Help others the way you help me. And remember, you are loved. When the recording ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even the judge wiped tears from his eyes. Serena and Donovan sat frozen in their seats, their faces pale. For the first time, They truly heard their mother's words. They heard how much pain they had caused her. They heard how much they had failed her. Days later, the judge made his ruling. After carefully reviewing all the evidence, he said, "I find that Beatrice Langford was absolutely of sound mind when she created her will. There is no evidence of manipulation or coercion. Her decision to leave her estate to Tobias was made freely and deliberately. Therefore, I rule in favor of the defendant. The will stands as written." Serena and Donovan's lawsuit was dismissed. They had lost. Everything their mother owned now legally belonged to Tobias. But the judge wasn't finished. He looked directly at Serena and Donovan. "I want to say something to the plaintiffs. Your mother left you a far more valuable gift than money. She left you a lesson. She showed you that love and kindness matter more than wealth. I suggest you take that lesson to heart." Case dismissed. Tobias sat between Reginald and Eliza, unable to believe it was really over. He had won. Mrs. Beatrice's wishes had been honored. As they left the courthouse, Tobias saw Serena and Donovan standing by their car. For a moment, he thought they might yell at him or threaten him again. But they didn't. They just stood there looking defeated and lost. Tobias surprised everyone, including himself, by walking over to them. "I'm sorry," Tobias said quietly. "I'm sorry you lost your mother. And I'm sorry you lost the inheritance." "But Mrs. Beatrice, she wasn't trying to punish you. She was trying to teach you something." "Teach us what?" Serena said bitterly. "That we're terrible people." "No," Tobias said. "That money isn't everything. That family means being there for people. That love matters more than stuff." He paused. "Mrs. Beatrice told me she loved you until the very end. She just wished you had loved her back the same way." Donovan looked away, his jaw clenched. But Tobias saw tears in his eyes. "I'm going to use this money the way she wanted." Tobias continued, "I'm going to help other kids like me. Kids who are alone and scared and hungry. And if you ever want to help, too, you can." Mrs. Beatrice would have liked that. He turned and walked back to Reginald and Eliza, leaving Serena and Donovan standing in silence. Years passed. Tobias lived with Reginald and Eliza, who officially adopted him. He went back to school and discovered he was incredibly smart, just like Mrs. Beatrice had said he was. He got straight A's and eventually got a scholarship to college. When he turned 18, Tobias gained full control of Mrs. Beatrice's estate. The first thing he did was set up a foundation called Beatrice's Hope to help homeless children. The foundation provided food, shelter, education, and support to kids who had nowhere else to go. Tobias also kept Mrs. Beatrice's furniture business running, but he changed it. He hired people who had been homeless or in trouble, giving them second chances just like Mrs. Beatrice had given him. He never forgot Mrs. Beatrice's kindness. Every year on her birthday, Tobias visited her grave. He brought fresh flowers and told her about all the children he had helped. He told her about the businesses he had started. He told her about the lives he had changed. "I kept my promise, Mrs. Beatrice," he would say. "I made you proud." And in a surprising twist, years after the court case, Tobias received a letter. It was from Serena. "Dear Tobias," it read, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness for how I treated you and my mother, but I wanted you to know you were right. Mother was trying to teach us something, and it took me losing everything to finally understand. I've been volunteering at a homeless shelter for the past year. It doesn't make up for anything, but it's a start. Thank you for showing me what real kindness looks like. Serena." Tobias wrote back inviting her to volunteer with Beatrice's Hope. Serena accepted. She never got the money back, but she got something better. She got a purpose. Donovan never apologized. He spent years being angry and bitter, but eventually even he came around. On the anniversary of Mrs. Beatrice's death, he showed up at her grave where Tobias was visiting. "I was a terrible son," Donovan said simply. "And you were a better son to her than I ever was, even though you weren't related by blood. I wanted you to know that I finally understand why she chose you." Tobias shook his hand. "She never stopped loving you, you know. She just wanted you to learn what really matters." On the anniversary of Mrs. Beatrice's death, Tobias stood before a crowd of people. They were gathered for the opening of a new children's home, the largest Beatrice's hope had ever built. Tobias, now successful and respected, stood at the podium and told the story. He told them about being a hungry boy who knocked on a rich woman's door. He told them about the birthday celebration that changed his life. He told them about kindness and love and second chances. "Mrs. Beatrice taught me that family isn't about blood," Tobias said, his voice strong and clear. "Family is about who shows up, who cares, who loves you when you need it most. She showed up for me when I had nothing and no one. And now, through this foundation, we show up for children who need someone to believe in them." The crowd applauded. Among them sat Reginald and Eliza, beaming with pride at the man Tobias had become. Also in the crowd was Serena, who now ran one of Beatrice's Hope's biggest programs. She had truly changed, dedicating her life to helping others instead of herself. Even Donovan was there, sitting quietly in the back. He had donated a large sum of his own money to the children's home, trying in his own way to honor the mother he had failed. That night, Tobias returned to Mrs. Beatrice's grave one more time. It was a beautiful evening with stars filling the sky. He knelt down and placed his hand on the headstone. "We did it, Mrs. Beatrice," he said softly. "You gave me a chance when I had nothing. You believed in me when no one else did. You loved me when I was alone. And because of you, hundreds of other kids now have what you gave me, hope." A gentle breeze blew through the cemetery, rustling the leaves on the trees. And in that moment, Tobias felt a warmth in his heart, as if Mrs. Beatrice was there with him, smiling. "Thank you," Tobias whispered. "Thank you for everything. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for teaching me that dreams really do come true." He stood up and looked at the stars, thinking about all the children currently sleeping in safe beds at Beatrice's Hope facilities. Children who had been hungry and scared just like he once was. Children who now had food, shelter, education, and most importantly, people who cared about them. Mrs. Beatrice's legacy lived on, not in mansions or money, but in the lives she had touched and the love she had shown. And Tobias, the street boy who became a millionaire, never forgot the most important lesson she taught him. True wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in kindness, in love, and in the lives you change for the better. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next